My best friend was jealous of my relationship and tried to poison me with apples knowing I was allergic. I always thought some friendships were unbreakable. That no matter how the years passed, no matter how life twisted and turned, there would always be those few people who stayed, who stood beside you through everything. For me, that person was Sienna. We met in high school, two girls who had no business being friends, but somehow became inseparable. She was wild where I was quiet. She had a fire in her that could light up a room, while I preferred to stand in the background and observe. But despite our differences, we understood each other in a way that no one else did. It was us against the world. She was the first person to know about my apple allergy. It was such a small thing, but I trusted her with it because back then, I trusted her with everything. She was the first to see me cry over my parents' divorce, the first to hold my hand through my awkward teenage heartbreaks, and the first to tell me I was going to do something great in life. And then there was Nathan. We both noticed him in our senior year. He was charming, kind, effortlessly cool. The kind of guy who turned heads without trying. Sienna liked him first, I think. But then again, she always claimed things first. I remember the day I realized I liked him too.
It was a stupid, small thing.
He'd seen me struggling to carry a stack of books from the library, and without hesitation, he took them from my hands and carried them all the way to my locker. He didn't ask for anything in return, didn't even seem to notice how my cheeks flushed from the unexpected kindness. Sienna had always talked about how she would get him, how she would make him hers. So I kept my mouth shut, because she was my best friend, and that's what best friends did. Then Nathan asked me out. I told him no at first. I told him Sienna liked him, that it wouldn't be right. He just smiled and said, "But I like you." I told Sienna about it that night, guilt sitting heavy in my stomach. But to my surprise, she just laughed, tossing her hair over her shoulder like it didn't matter at all. "It's fine," she said. "Really? I've moved on. I'm already talking to someone else." I wanted to believe her. So I did. Years passed and Nathan and I became something real. We survived the transition from high school to college, from late-night study sessions to making long-term plans for the future. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. And Sienna? She was still there, still my best friend. She started dating too, bringing new guys into our circle, though none of them seemed to last long. At first, everything felt the same. But then the small things started. The first time it happened, I brushed it off. A missing sweater, one of my favorites, only to later find Sienna wearing it in one of her Instagram photos. She laughed when I brought it up, waving me off with a casual, "Oh, I must have grabbed it by accident." The second time, it was something more. Pictures surfaced on social media, ones where Sienna was out at parties, wrapped around guys I barely knew. The problem wasn't the photos themselves, it was that people started whispering. That Nathan saw them and looked at me differently. "Is there something you're not telling me?" he asked one night, his voice tight. It took me too long to understand what he meant. "What?" He hesitated, then sighed. "People have been saying things. That you're not always where you say you are." At first I laughed, thinking it was a joke. But the look in his eyes told me otherwise. I didn't know what to say. How could I convince him of something that wasn't even true? The doubts had already been planted. It got worse. One night, in the middle of working on my senior thesis, my laptop suddenly died. I panicked, knowing I had saved my draft but not sure if it had backed up. When I turned it over, I noticed the wet streaks along the keyboard. Water. But I hadn't spilled anything. I spent that night trying to recover my work, my hands shaking as the realization sunk in. Someone had done this on purpose. I didn't want to believe it. Not until the rumors started. Not until someone accused me of stealing money from a student group, only for me to have an alibi proving I wasn't even there. Not until I noticed the way Sienna watched me, a flicker of something unreadable in her eyes. Not until I started keeping track of everything. The final straw came on the morning of my biggest exam, the one I needed to pass to solidify my future. Sienna walked into my room, holding out a cookie. "Here," she said, smiling. "Thought you could use some luck." I stared at it. Something inside me, some deep, unsettled part of my gut, told me not to take it. I forced a smile. "You didn't put apples in it, did you?" I asked, laughing lightly. You know I can't have them. She rolled her eyes. Obviously not. Still, I hesitated. I glanced at my laptop, making sure my camera was on, recording. Just in case. I even reached for my phone, setting it on speed dial. Something about the way Sienna was watching me, her too perfect smile, the way her fingers twitched slightly, sent a chill down my spine. But I had no proof. Not yet. So I took the cookie, turning it over in my hands. You swear? God, just eat it already. And then she moved faster than I thought possible. One sharp shove, and my own best friend forced it into my mouth. The first taste was sweet. The second was panic. The swelling started almost immediately. My throat closed, my breath catching as my body registered the allergen. My fingers fumbled for my phone, hitting send on my SOS text as my vision blurred. I reached for Sienna, gasping, choking. My EpiPen? I wheezed. She just stood there, watching me struggle, watching me fall. And then she spoke, her voice soft, almost regretful. You always took everything from me. And then she turned and walked away, leaving me to die. Darkness closed in, thick and suffocating. My throat was on fire, my chest spasming as I struggled to draw in air. My body was shutting down, the allergic reaction spiraling out of control, and through the haze of my panic, only one thought rang clear. Sienna left me. She left me to die. I tried to scream, to call out for help, but my voice was nothing more than a strangled wheeze. My fingers clawed at the floor as my vision blurred, my body thrumming with terror. My limbs felt distant, disconnected from me, as if I were already slipping away. Then suddenly, voices, footsteps, a door slamming open. Oh my God! Call an ambulance. I felt hands on my shoulders, someone rolling me onto my side, my body convulsing in protest. The pain was unbearable, a crushing weight on my chest that refused to let up. The panic in the room was palpable, but I couldn't focus on anything beyond the sound of my own ragged breathing. Epinephrine. Where's her EpiPen? A voice demanded. It was Nathan. My fingers twitched. I tried to reach for my bag where I always kept it, but my body wouldn't respond. Then, a hand rummaged through my things, and a moment later, sharp pain burst through my thigh as the EpiPen was injected. The effect wasn't immediate, but within seconds, the crushing tightness in my throat began to ease. My chest still heaved painfully, my entire body shaking, but at least, I could breathe again. You're okay. You're okay, Nathan murmured, brushing damp strands of hair away from my face. His voice was shaking, but his touch was steady. Just stay with me. The ambulance is on its way. I wanted to tell him everything. That Sienna had done this. That she had fed me the cookie, knowing it would kill me. That she had stood there and watched, not lifting a single finger to help. But all I could do was stare up at him, the words caught in my burning throat. Minutes passed, or maybe hours. Everything was a blur of sirens, frantic voices, and the rush of being lifted onto a stretcher. My body felt heavy, exhausted, but my mind wouldn't stop racing. Sienna tried to kill me.
Why?
I woke up in a sterile hospital room, the soft beeping of machines the only sound. My body ached, my throat raw, but I was alive. Nathan sat beside me, his face pale, his hands clasped together like he was praying. When he noticed my eyes opening, he shot up, relief crashing over his features. You're awake. Thank God. He ran a hand through his hair, exhaling sharply. Jesus, you scared me. I tried to speak, but my voice came out hoarse. He reached for a cup of water on the table, bringing it to my lips. I took small sips, every movement feeling like it took monumental effort. Sienna, I finally croaked, my voice barely above a whisper. She. Nathan's jaw clenched, his hands tightening into fists. I saw the live stream. A cold chill ran down my spine. My laptop, I had left it recording. I didn't watch all of it, he continued, his voice low, tense. But I saw enough. His eyes darkened with something unreadable. The police have it now. They're investigating. A part of me wanted to feel relief, but all I felt was exhaustion. Why? The question slipped out before I could stop it. It wasn't just about the attempt on my life. It was about everything: the missing clothes, the rumors, the sabotage, the betrayal. Why would she do this? Nathan hesitated, his gaze dropping to the floor. I don't know, but I promise you, she's not going to get away with this. The next few days passed in a blur of doctors, questions, and visits from the police. They took my statement, reviewing the live stream footage, gathering evidence. The detective in charge assured me that this wasn't just an accident. They were treating it as a deliberate act, an attempted murder. The weight of that truth settled heavily on my chest. Murder. Sienna had wanted me dead.
But why?
I thought back to her words, the cold fury in her voice as she loomed over me. You always took everything from me. Did she mean Nathan? Was this about him all along? Or was it something deeper, something I had never noticed until it was too late? Nathan stayed with me through it all. He barely left my side, his protectiveness unwavering. But there was something different in his eyes now, guilt, maybe. Like he blamed himself for not seeing the truth sooner. You should get some rest, he told me one evening, brushing his thumb over the back of my hand. I'll be right here. I nodded, too drained to argue. But as I drifted off, one thought haunted me. Sienna wasn't finished yet. And I wasn't going to let her win. The hospital walls felt like a prison. Every hour that passed, the reality of what happened sank deeper into my bones. I wasn't just recovering. I was preparing for war. Nathan was still here. Always here. He barely left my side, as if he feared I would disappear if he looked away for even a second. His presence was steady, grounding, but there was something behind his gaze that unsettled me.
Guilt.
I needed answers. Nathan, I said, my voice still hoarse but stronger than before. Tell me the truth. Did you ever suspect her? His fingers clenched into the sheets of my hospital bed. He let out a slow breath, as if weighing his words. No, he admitted. Not until now. It shouldn't have hurt, but it did. She was my best friend, I whispered. I trusted her. And this whole time, she was trying to destroy me. He looked at me then, eyes stormy. She didn't just try to destroy you. She tried to kill you. I swallowed the lump in my throat. The thought was too big, too horrifying. But there was no running from it. No pretending it didn't happen. The police said they found something on her. Nathan continued, his voice tight. On her laptop in her messages. Apparently, she's been keeping tabs on you for years. Collecting little things, twisting them to make you look bad. The rumors, the stolen clothes, the accusations. She was setting you up all along. My stomach churned. But why? Why do all of this? Nathan hesitated. You heard what she said before she left you on the floor. She thinks you took everything from her. That doesn't make sense. I stopped. The memories rushed in unbidden. Sienna laughing about how she would make Nathan hers. The way she brushed it off when I told her he had asked me out. The countless guys she had dated, none of whom stayed around for long. Had it always been there? The resentment? Had I been too blind to see it? This isn't just about Nathan, I murmured. This is deeper than that. Nathan looked at me like he already knew, like he'd already pieced it together but had been waiting for me to accept it. She didn't just want to ruin your life, he said. She wanted to be you. The thought sent a shiver down my spine. The police arrived the next morning with an update. Sienna was missing. What do you mean missing? I asked, gripping the hospital blanket as if it could keep me anchored. She hasn't returned to her dorm. Her phone is off, and her roommate says she packed a bag and left, Detective Holloway explained, her voice level but serious. We're issuing a warrant for her arrest. But I need you to understand that she might try to contact you. The room felt colder. Why would she do that? Because she's obsessed with you. And obsession doesn't just disappear overnight. Nathan's hand found mine, his grip strong. If she contacts you, if you see her anywhere, you call the police. Immediately. I nodded, but my mind was already moving a mile a minute. Sienna wasn't finished yet. I was discharged from the hospital under strict orders to rest, but rest was the last thing on my mind. Nathan insisted on staying at my apartment, refusing to let me be alone. I didn't argue. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound outside made me jump. Every shadow in the room felt like a threat. I sat up in bed, staring at the darkened window, my heart pounding with unease. Then my phone buzzed. A single message. Unknown number. Did you really think it was over? My breath hitched. My fingers trembled as I hovered over the screen. Another message appeared. Unknown number. You took everything from me. Now it's my turn. I didn't hesitate. My hand shot out, shaking Nathan awake. She's here. His eyes snapped open instantly, taking in my fear-stricken expression before locking onto my phone. He grabbed it from my hands, reading the messages. His face darkened, his jaw tightening. He was already reaching for his own phone when the next message came. Unknown number. See you soon. A knock sounded at the front door. I stopped breathing. Nathan jumped up, motioning for me to stay behind him as he crept toward the door. My heart pounded against my ribs as he peered through the peephole. A beat passed. Then he exhaled sharply. It's the police. Relief and fear battled inside me as he opened the door. Detective Holloway stepped inside, her face grim. We have reason to believe Sienna is nearby. We need you to come with us for protection. Nathan exchanged a look with me, and I knew we were both thinking the same thing. This wasn't over.
Not yet.
The drive to the police station was tense. Every shadow outside the window, every car that passed too closely, felt like a potential threat. My hands were clenched in my lap, nails digging into my skin as I struggled to keep my breathing steady. Nathan sat beside me, his body tense, jaw tight. Detective Holloway was in the front seat, speaking in low tones into her radio, but I barely processed her words. My mind was stuck on the last message.
See you soon.
She was out there, watching, waiting. The car came to a stop, and I forced myself to move. The moment we stepped into the police station, a wave of exhaustion hit me, but I shoved it down. There was no time to be weak. Detective Holloway led us into a private room. We have officers patrolling your building and monitoring your phone, she said. She used an unregistered number, which makes it harder to trace, but we're working on it. Nathan crossed his arms. What's the plan? We can't just wait for her to make another move. Holloway sighed. We've issued a warrant for her arrest, and given the live stream footage, there's enough to charge her with attempted murder. If she tries to contact you again, we'll be ready. It wasn't enough. And if she doesn't? I asked, my voice quieter. What if she just keeps running? Then we find her first. Hours passed. We were allowed to leave, but not without precautions. A police escort followed us back to my apartment, and security measures were put in place. Cameras. Alarms. Everything to make sure I was safe. But safety was an illusion. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my body refusing to rest. My mind replayed every interaction, every warning sign I had ignored. The stolen clothes, the rumors, the broken laptop. I had been blind. Sienna had been unraveling for years, and I hadn't seen it until it was too late. Nathan's voice broke through the silence. You're not sleeping. I turned to see him standing in my doorway, arms crossed. The dim light cast shadows across his face, making his exhaustion more pronounced. Neither are you, I replied. He sighed, stepping inside. How could I?
She's still out there.
And I can't shake the feeling that this isn't over. I swallowed hard. It's not. Nathan hesitated before sitting on the edge of my bed. I should have seen it. All the little things she did. I should have protected you sooner. I shook my head. This isn't your fault. It's hers. He met my gaze, something unreadable in his eyes. Then, let's end it. Together. The next morning, I made a decision. I wasn't going to hide. I wasn't going to wait for Sienna to make her next move. If she was obsessed with me, then I would draw her out. Nathan wasn't happy about it, but he knew I was right. We started by retracing her steps.
Her old dorm.
Her favorite cafe. The places we used to go together. I wanted to get inside her head, to think like her, to predict her next move. It didn't take long to find something. Nathan and I were sitting in the cafe where we used to study when my phone vibrated. Unknown number, nice try. My blood ran cold. I scanned the room, my pulse hammering in my ears. She was here, watching. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm as I typed a reply. Me why? The response was immediate. Unknown number. You already know. My hands clenched into fists. I was done playing games. Me. Then come tell me yourself. There was no reply. Just silence. Then Nathan's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, his face darkening. She sent a picture. I leaned in. The image was grainy, but unmistakable. It was of my apartment building. Nathan was already moving. We need to go.
Now.
By the time we reached the apartment, the police were already there. The front door had been forced open, the lock shattered. My stomach twisted as we stepped inside. She had been here. My clothes were scattered, my bed overturned. Papers for my thesis were shredded, my laptop smashed. But that wasn't the worst part. Taped to the bathroom mirror was a photograph. Of me, sleeping. Nathan swore under his breath, yanking the picture down. She was inside while we were gone. I felt sick. She's escalating. Detective Holloway arrived moments later, her expression grim as she surveyed the scene. This confirms what we suspected. She's not just running, she's hunting. Then we need to set a trap, I said. Holloway nodded slowly. And I think I know how. The plan was risky, dangerous, but it was the only way. I agreed to go on the news to make a statement about what happened. To act like I was moving forward, trying to heal, while making it clear I wasn't afraid. Nathan was against it at first. You're putting yourself in danger. I already am, I said. But this way, we control the narrative. We make her come to us. And it worked. That night, another message came. Unknown number. You think you're so clever? Let's see how brave you really are. Attached was a location. Nathan's grip tightened on my hand. She wants to meet. I exhaled shakily. Then let's finish this. The trap was set. And this time, she wouldn't escape. The abandoned warehouse loomed in front of us, its towering structure casting long, jagged shadows under the dim streetlights. The address Sienna sent led us here, far from any crowded streets or witnesses. Nathan gripped my hand tightly, his warmth grounding me even as my heart pounded. Are you sure about this? I nodded. We end this tonight. Detective Holloway's team was in position. Officers surrounded the perimeter, keeping out of sight, waiting for the right moment to intervene. The plan was simple: lure Sienna out, get her to confess on camera, and let the authorities take it from there. But I knew nothing with Sienna was ever simple. Nathan exhaled sharply, stepping closer. Stay behind me. If she tries anything, I can handle myself. I cut in, meeting his gaze. We do this together. He hesitated, then nodded. Together. I took a deep breath, pushing forward through the rusted metal door. It groaned under the pressure, revealing the dark, cavernous interior. The air was thick with dust, the scent of mildew clinging to every surface. And then I saw her. Sienna stood in the center of the room, bathed in the dim light of a single, flickering bulb. Her hair was wild, her clothes disheveled. But her eyes were alight with something dangerous, something unhinged. You came, she said softly, almost reverently. I knew you would. I took a cautious step forward, feeling Nathan shift protectively beside me. Why are we here, Sienna? What do you want? She laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. What do I want? I want what I deserved from the start. The life you stole from me. My fists clenched. I never stole anything from you. You were my best friend. I trusted you. Her expression twisted into something ugly. Trusted me, she spat. You never saw me as an equal. You walked through life so effortlessly, top grades, perfect boyfriend. Everyone loving you. And me? I was always just there. Always in your shadow. I waited for you to fall, to show a single weakness, but you never did. She took a step closer, and I held my ground. I tried everything to make people see you the way I did. The rumors, the stolen clothes, the sabotage. But nothing worked. They still loved you. And Nathan. Her voice broke as she turned to him, her eyes flashing with something raw. Even after everything, even when I was the one standing beside him, he still only saw you. Nathan's jaw tightened. You tried to kill her, Sienna. This isn't just jealousy. This is obsession. And why shouldn't I be obsessed? She shrieked. You were supposed to be mine, but you chose her like everyone else. I took a slow, measured breath, trying to keep her talking. You poisoned me, Sienna. You left me to die. A twisted smile curled on her lips. I just wanted you to lose, to suffer. Just once. But you always find a way to win, don't you? Her eyes gleamed. Not this time. She moved too fast. 1 second she was still. The next she lunged, a knife glinting in her hand. Nathan shoved me back, intercepting her with a firm grip. The struggle was violent, their bodies clashing as he fought to disarm her. Nathan, I gasped, scrambling to my feet. He managed to knock the knife from her grasp, sending it skittering across the floor. But Sienna wasn't done. With a guttural scream, she broke free, snatching a rusted metal pipe from the ground. She swung wildly, and I barely ducked in time. I needed to end this.
Now.
I grabbed the knife, my fingers trembling around the handle. Sienna, stop. It's over. She turned to me, her breath ragged, her body trembling with rage. Not until I take everything from you. The sound of sirens filled the air, flashing red and blue lights spilling through the warehouse windows. Sienna's eyes widened in realization, and for the first time, fear flickered across her face. Detective Holloway's voice rang out. Drop the weapon and put your hands up. Sienna's gaze snapped back to mine, her expression torn between fury and desperation. You set me up, she whispered, her voice shaking. I nodded. You set yourself up. For a moment, I thought she might run. But then her shoulders slumped, and the fight drained from her body. The officers closed in, handcuffing her as she let out a hollow laugh. You win again, she murmured. Like always. As they dragged her away, I felt a weight lift off my chest. It was over. Nathan turned to me, his expression unreadable before he pulled me into a tight embrace. Are you okay? I exhaled shakily. I will be. For the first time in a long time, I believed it. The days after Sienna's arrest passed in a blur. The media had picked up the story, twisting it into sensational headlines, betrayed by her best friend. A tale of jealousy and revenge. Reporters camped outside my apartment, eager to get a statement. The whispers followed me everywhere, in my classes, in the hallways, even in the quiet spaces I once found solace in. But the hardest part was accepting the truth. Sienna was gone. Not in the physical sense, but the version of her I had once known, the girl who had been my best friend, had ceased to exist long before I realized it. She had been replaced by someone I didn't recognize, someone consumed by hatred and resentment. And that realization hurt more than I wanted to admit. Nathan stayed by my side through it all, offering silent support when words failed me. He knew that no amount of reassurances would fix what had been broken, but he didn't try to force me to move on before I was ready. The trial moved quickly. The live stream, the text messages, the attempted poisoning, they had all painted a clear picture of her guilt. There was no denying what she had done. Sienna pled guilty to all charges. I thought I would feel relief when I heard the verdict, but all I felt was empty. No amount of justice could undo what had happened. No sentence could bring back the friendship we had lost. The night after the trial, I sat alone in my apartment, staring at the city lights outside my window. The memories played in my head like a cruel montage, late-night study sessions, sneaking junk food into the dorms, laughing until our stomachs hurt. I had believed in her, trusted her, and in the end, she had tried to destroy me. I had to let her go. The knock on my door startled me from my thoughts. I already knew who it was before I even opened it. Nathan stood there, holding a bag of takeout and a small, tentative smile. I figured you probably haven't eaten. I stepped aside, letting him in. You figured right. He set the food on the table, but neither of us moved to eat. Instead, he turned to me, his expression gentle yet firm. You don't have to carry this alone. I let out a shaky breath. It's not that easy. She was my best friend, Nathan, for years. And I didn't even see what was happening until it was too late. He reached for my hand, threading his fingers through mine. That's not your fault. Sienna made her choices. You trusted her because you're a good person. You shouldn't have to change that because of what she did. Tears burned at the corners of my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. Instead, I squeezed his hand. Thank you. For everything. His thumb brushed gently over my knuckles. I'm not going anywhere. For the first time in weeks, I felt something other than exhaustion, other than grief. I felt warmth. I felt hope. Healing wasn't a linear process. Some days were better than others. Some nights I still woke up gasping, my mind plagued by nightmares of Sienna's betrayal. But I didn't let it control me. I went back to my classes. I finished my thesis. I took my life back. And as time passed, the weight of what had happened became easier to bear. One afternoon, as I was packing up my books in the library, my phone buzzed with a notification. A letter from Sienna. I hesitated before opening it, my stomach twisting. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even expect you to read this. But I wanted to say that I'm sorry. Not for getting caught, not for facing the consequences, but for everything before that. For the things you never saw, the things I thought I could justify to myself. I was selfish. I let my jealousy consume me. And I hurt you in ways that I can never undo. You were always better than me. Not because of your grades, or Nathan, or how people saw you, but because you never let the world make you cruel. I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I hope, one day, you find peace. I stared at the words for a long time, my heart a mix of emotions I couldn't quite name. She was right. I couldn't forgive her, not yet, maybe not ever. But for the first time since it all began, I realized something important. I didn't need to hold on to the anger anymore. I was free. Months passed. The scars Sienna left behind remained, but they no longer defined me. I had rebuilt my life, my confidence, and my future. And in the end, I hadn't just survived. I had won.